All right, today we're going to be comparing the iPad mini 7 to the Supernote A6 X2 Nomad. I'm calling this the battle of the little guys because we're looking at which one of these two small digital note-taking devices is better for doing just that, digital note-taking. Because objectively, the iPad mini can do much more than the Supernote Nomad here. Because this is designed to be a note-taking device. It's using an e-ink screen, so it's not going to be able to run these really powerful, super fancy apps like the iPad mini can, and it's not going to have color and things like that, but that's kind of the beauty of it in its own way. So in this video, we're going to look at things like their design, their portability, and their note-taking capabilities, because those are things that you can truly compare between the two of them. Something really cool about e-ink is that a screensaver like this actually shows up when you put it to sleep. Because of how e-ink works, it really only expends energy when moving the particles around. So you can have a really nice custom image like this, which just looks really nice on this display, and it pops great, where you don't really have that on the iPad mini. You can tap the screen to see your lock screen, but that's about it. So as far as design, the Supernote Nomad here is made completely out of plastic. It has these indented areas with magnets in place, and that's for its folio cover. And then it has a textured screen film on top of the screen itself, which gives it its writing feel and allows the pen to actually kind of press into the screen slightly with the Feel Right 2 screen that they have on this. And it's got mostly uniform bezels. The top bezel here is actually slightly larger than the bottom bezel. Otherwise, they're pretty much parallel on all sides. And the iPad mini, though, has completely even bezels all around, and they are overall just thinner. And speaking of thinness, the overall thickness of the devices aren't too terribly different, but the mini does have it beat just ever so slightly. I guess unless you count the camera bump, then it does not. And that is a nice thing about the Supernote Nomad, is it lays perfectly flat, where the iPad mini here with that camera bump does have a little bit of wobble from that. On the iPad mini side, it's all aluminum on the back, on the sides, and then a nice LCD 60 Hertz display with Touch ID on top to unlock, which that is a great feature for security purposes on the iPad mini that you don't get on the Supernote Nomad. It has a camera on the top here and a camera on the back. So if you need things with cameras, well, the iPad mini is the tool for you. They both have USB-C ports. The mini has it on the bottom, the Nomad has it on the top, which actually I do really like the top USB-C port, because then if you have it on your desk, you can plug it in a cable without having to dangle it all around the device and plug it into the bottom or having to go upside down. You just plug it right in and it works great. So I would say overall, I'm going to give the build quality to the iPad mini just because it's definitely made out of more premium materials, and considering they cost pretty similar, it is nice to see really high build quality, and Apple just has great build quality. It's hard for another company to quite match their process. However, don't think the Supernote feels super cheap because of the plastic design. They do that for durability purposes. It feels like a very premium plastic. It feels solid. It's not super creaky. It works well. And you can pop off the back here relatively easily and get access to things like the battery and the motherboard, and expand the storage with an SD card, things that you cannot do on the iPad mini. So build materials, I'm gonna give it to the iPad mini. But as far as the actual design, I'm actually gonna give it to the Supernote Nomad because of the ability to upgrade things after the fact, the placement of the USB-C port, and their touch bars they have on the side here. Just the overall thoughtfulness that they included on this design, especially when it comes to e-ink devices, is great. And I think they need to be recognized for that. And really quick, let's talk about the pens here. So this is the cheaper of the Supernote pens. It's just their standard push-up pen, and it is significantly shorter than the Apple Pencil, and it is also decently thicker and chubbier here, but I don't think either one is necessarily better over the other. Maybe the Apple Pencil is slightly less fatiguing just using it here, but this feels a lot more like a regular pen, and especially if you're familiar with that, That's probably going to feel really nice. And especially if you like click pens, this is very satisfying and quite the little fidget toy. And the tips are just very, very different. The one, the Supernote Nomad, is incredibly more precise. As far as portability, I just want to say these are basically the exact same as far as footprint. If you left the corners on the iPad mini, it'd be virtually identical. The mini is slightly less wide than the Supernote Nomad, as you can see by it peeking out just ever so slightly. And the mini is just ever so slightly taller than the Nomad, as you can see by it peeking out at the top here. So fractionally different, but basically the exact same footprint. Wherever this can go, the mini can go. Wherever the mini can go, this can go, including in some of my cargo pants pockets or even just some deeper pants pockets. They have both been able to fit before. And if I do put one of them in a pocket, it's way easier to put the Supernote pen in some other pocket as well, because it has the nice clip on it, where the Apple Pencil is not going to stay attached to the mini. And if you do want to put it in one of these kind of pockets right here, it has nothing to clip onto to stay anywhere, where the Supernote pen can go right there and stay very securely. All right, let's talk about note-taking tools. So I'm going to be using Apple Notes in this demonstration just because this is what everyone getting the iPad mini will get out of the box. And yes, there are other third-party tools that you can use as well. And there technically are for the Supernote Nomad now that it supports side loading. But in both cases, the first-party apps are going to be the most optimized and probably the most used by the majority of people buying the products. So as far as tools, Apple Notes has a handwriting to text tool built right into the pen toolbar here, has a regular pen that has pressure sensitivity, has a monoline pen, has a highlighter, an eraser, a lasso selection tool, a ruler that you could add into your notebook, a pencil tool, a crayon, watercolor, a fountain pen, which has rotation and pressure sensitivity. And as far as tools for Supernote, it has the needlepoint pen, which is that monoline style pen, has an ink pen, which does have pressure sensitivity, and a marker tool that can also be used as like a highlighter and stuff like that. And an eraser as well, and the lasso tool. I actually have one of each kind of tool right on the side toolbar right there. And it's very easy to get rid of this toolbar. You just double tap the screen and it's gone. Where the iPad, you can drag it to one of the corners or hit that button to remove the tool. And with the new Apple Pencil Pro, you can squeeze the pencil and bring up your toolbar wherever you're at, which is really nice and handy. However, you can't hide this top bar here like you can in the Supernote Nomad to create a completely clean looking notebook where it's just paper. They both do have good pressure sensitivity. The Supernote uses the Wacom EMR standard, so it's really nice and precise. And Apple uses their own proprietary standard, but it still looks very good, and you can have very thin lines and go very thick as well, very easily. And as far as latency, I can't tell a noticeable difference between either of these. Even with this being an e-ink screen, and refreshing can be slow like this, it's really not slow when it comes to the stylus. I can't really see a single delay when writing with this. They are both very, very quick, and you're not going to see a big downside on either of them. To quickly erase something on the Supernote, you can put 2 fingers on this sidebar here and select an area of stuff to erase. The quickest way to get to the eraser on the iPad mini is double tapping the stylus and then erasing, and it will just be set to whatever you had the eraser do before, which could be the stroke eraser. You could make the point a little bit bigger as well, however you want to do it. You can also set it to be the squeeze gesture as well, or instead of that, if you prefer, although I like the squeeze gesture to bring up the tool palette. They also both have gestures to undo and redo. So on the Supernote side of things, swiping up on this bar does undo, swiping down does redo. So on the iPad, taking 3 fingers and double tapping will do undo. And if you swipe left, it undoes as well. And swiping right redos. You also pinch inward to copy, pinch outward to paste. And those are kind of the main gestures you can do on the iPad. Or the other gesture you can do as well as use the sidebar is tap on the sidebar and move it around to go from page to page on your notebook, and that is quite handy. And swiping up from this corner refreshes the display whenever you want it to, as e-ink can sometimes do some ghosting and have residues from previous pages. Then swiping down here, you get quick access to some notes you have pinned here, recent files. You make a new note right here, look at your last open document, and some of your apps down here at the bottom. And swiping down here, get some settings and stuff like that, which is convenient as well. You can also, very similarly to how you can move this whole tool palette around anywhere you need to go on the iPad, you can do the same thing here on Supernote. You can move this around and make it to a floating toolbar. It's definitely not as smooth as Apple's version, but that's just the nature of e-ink technology here. If you push it up close to the top, it will switch sides to face that direction. You can also bring it all the way down to the bottom if you want as well. And you can push it all the way up into the top and into the bottom. And any tools that got cut off because of the shorter space, you can find in the expanded section on these 3 dots. You can also, very similarly to how you can shrink the toolbar here, you can shrink it here as well. Keeps the tool you're using in eraser and undo and redo quick, which I think is a really good way of using it for sure. We kind of got the general idea of what these apps can do, but is there any like really powerful things that one has over the other? Well, for Supernote, you can go in and change the template to a whole host of their built-in templates here. And you can even add custom templates as well. The sky is the limit when it comes to templates here, and that is really cool to see. With the iPad, it's not so much. You get this. You have 3 different lines and 3 different grids and a blank page, and no option for custom templates. Now, in Apple Notes, you can scan text, you can scan documents, you can take a photo or video or add one in. You can record audio, attach to some kind of file. So there's a lot more attachment options here in Apple Notes where you don't get that in the Supernote. You can set a PDF as your template in the notes here, but that is about as far as integrating other kinds of file types you can get. Apple also now has their Apple Intelligence built into the note-taking app here. So especially if you do more like typed things as well, then you can have writing tools help out with that, or you can compose stuff with ChatGPT, which is really nice to have all built in. But that's typed notes, and I think of this device as way more for handwriting notes, and that's what I prioritize here as well. So I don't think that's a deal breaker by any means. And I kind of like the beauty of not having AI think for me on this device. It's very much my own thoughts and my own writing here. So yeah, I think Apple Notes has a bit more powerful tools in it that can be used almost more professionally, and a lot of benefits for you if you use typed text. But when it comes to handwriting tools, I think they're pretty equal, and I like that this has custom templates and can do a lot more with that. You also get table of contents here in Supernote. So if I have something here that I want to select, which by the way, you can also do 2 fingers on the screen to activate the lasso tool, and I can make this into a heading. And now when I go in my table of contents, this is actually a header for the entire document. So now if I have a huge document here, I can have all these different headers and jump back to page 12 and see this one here, or jump all the way back here really easily, and then use this to navigate all around my notebook, and that's awesome. You can also do keywords. It's a very similar thing. If I go hello and lasso select that, add it as a keyword, it recognizes it as text, and now that's a keyword, and that's here in the keywords right here. And when you search the notebook, it will search that as well. You can also star things. So if I just draw a star here, it will perfect it there. Now it shows up. So there's just lots of ways that you can navigate around the notebook to get to different pages or section off things and keep track of what was important that you discovered while taking your notes. including linking to another page or some other page in a different file or even a web page, all right here. Now you can totally put links in Apple Notes as well, but it has to be written out. You could even link inside Apple Notes to other notes, but again, it has to be typed out where this can just do any handwritten selection can be turned into your link. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this one a draw as well because it is really hard to be able to know what your use case is for these devices. For me, I think the Supernote has a better selection of note-taking tools. But I'm thinking this more in the context of handwriting, and I like how this handles the handwritten stuff much more than the iPad. But if you need to have all these different attachments in with the handwriting, like audio and things like that, or AI functionality built in, or the ability to basically just treat your handwriting like text, where you can just easily select it, you can copy it, you can change colors of the text, you can copy it as text, you can straighten it, translate it, refine it, all these kinds of things right from Apple Notes. So as far as like powerful features, I think Apple Notes and the iPad has more of it. But as far as what I like more just to write on and utilize the tools, Supernote for sure. And that brings me right into the writing feel of these devices, where Supernote hands down has the superior writing feel. So yeah, the film that Supernote uses on their device, along with the stylus tip that they have, their ceramic tip here, just feels like a pen on a nice pad of paper, and it feels very authentic. Where this definitely feels like a plastic tip on a glass screen. Now, you can mitigate that a little bit by using a paper-like or something equivalent screen protector on the iPad mini, but I've had those on iPads before, and trust me, it is not like these e-ink screens, especially this Nomad here. It is excellent as far as writing feel in comparison to the iPad mini. So that's the conclusion of my comparison between these two devices. And yeah, I'm leaning towards saying the Supernote Nomad is the superior note-taking device out of these two. It's also a little bit cheaper than the iPad mini here, but the iPad mini does a lot more. So I'm not really going to count price as a pro here. I think the value is pretty equal, if not leaning more towards the iPad mini, because again, you can get way more out of it, and it can do way more than being your digital note-taking device. But in this particular category, the Supernote wins. It's made for those who write. It's made to be a great note-taking device, and I do think it does that well. I really want to do this video, even though I know I've compared the Supernote with iPads in the past, but never the iPad mini, and I just think that this size Supernote with this size iPad mini just makes sense to talk about. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. If you missed it, I've made several reviews of the Supernote Nomad on this channel, a full review and initial impressions of the iPad mini, and more comparisons of this device are coming out as well. So if you like either of these, stay tuned for way more coverage of iPads and e-ink tablets on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and comment below any questions. I'll always do my best to answer your questions as fully and completely as I possibly can. And if you're watching this and haven't subscribed, please do so. I'm working on getting to 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And if you like the equipment and the setup I have here, it's all gonna be linked in my description down below. I made a full review on this desk if you're interested in that, so check that out. And as always, have a great rest of your day.